Hey guys, it's Sithlore. Today we're going to go over the skill Firebomb and the associated runes. And so Firebomb is an AoE spell, although it's a very small radius of only 8 yards, that deals 110 weapon damage as fire. So it looks something like that, and you can see the damage that it does in the area.
This is horrible.
So
Bring him to me that I may rend the flesh from his bones.
So as you can see, it does decent damage. Again, remember that my weapon damage is approximately 45,000. So my critical hits do fairly well. And then everything else does about 30 or 30k damage. 35k. Most of my hits do about 30,000 weapon damage, which is what I would expect. So let's change up the runes now that you've seen the normal skill. So the first one is Flash Fire. Flash Fires are excellent mob skill because what it does is instead of having AoE damage, it's up to 6 individual fire bombs. That once it hits one target, it looks for another target. The disadvantage is that it reduces every target that it hits. It reduces weapon damage by 15%. It's not a 15, 30, 45, but it's 15% of the last skill. So let me just come over here and I'll show you how it works. So cast it at one, and then it bounces to another that's nearby. So even though I'm casting it once, you can see that it's jumping to all of those targets. The disadvantage of this skill is that it is not an extremely powerful single target spell, as it's only 110% weapon damage.
I have not seen so much blood since the Vigerai held summoning rituals.
The next rune is Roll the Bones. So what this does is a little similar as it bounces. This time the AoE damage does stick, but what it does is it bounces 3 times. So it's great linear damage. It's a decent AoE skill, linear AoE skill, but this time the 110% weapon damage stays all 3 times.
Just over there. I never imagined such a creature.
And this is the perfect opportunity to use this skill because we're in a hallway. And so all of the enemies are going to be in a line. We lose a little bit because of the fact that we've got Waller damage, but we've got a Waller attribute. So I'm going to summon him. But you can see that even with just using this primary skill, I'm able to take that relatively easily. So that's another extremely strong rune. The first 2 runes are, in my opinion, the 2 best runes available for Firebomb. I'm not a big fan of Fire Pit. What Fire Pit does is it creates an explosion of fire that, in addition to the normal 110%, remains to deal 36% weapon damage over 3 seconds. It's only an extra 12% per second. It does stack, so it can do a fair amount of damage depending on how many times you're able to cast the skill. And where it becomes really effective, let me get my dogs out as well, is when you can hold enemies in place for a period of time. So as you can see, if I don't leave the area, fortunately the fire pit also started burning, but by staying there you can see the damage that's being taken and the fact that the fire remains. So by having 3 there, you can see the damage just taken away. So this does become effective if you can hold enemies in place. It's kind of like the Blizzard Hydra spell, where Poison Hydra is the strongest ability if the enemies can stay in place. So So although I said I'm not a big fan of it, that's because I like moving around. But it can do... This is the best spell for individual single target damage. The next rune choice is Pyrojaste. This is another single target spell, or I'm going to call it a single target spell. Let me just show you what it does. You cast one, and you can only have one at a time, and it will spit randomly. If there's enemies nearby, it does target those enemies. So by putting that out, you can see that it's only attacking the enemies nearby. And it does 600% damage, so it's not bad, but as soon as I cast another one, the first one goes away. So essentially it becomes a cast and forget spell. For my primary skill, I don't want a cast and forget spell. So that's the reason that I don't like this thing. Because as you can see, now that I've got him out, well, I can use other skills, but my single target, or my Firebomb spell, becomes essentially pointless. The last rune choice is Ghost Bomb. So what this does is, in addition to the 110% weapon damage in the small 8-yard area, it does an additional 30% weapon damage to basically everyone else in a 28-yard radius. So it does fairly decent amount of weapon damage, or decent radius amount, that's probably a better way of phrasing it. But the weapon damage is not significant. So you're not doing very much damage to anyone outside the initial blast zone, but it is a little bit of damage. I don't find that the little bit of extra AoE damage is worth giving up one of the other runes. So I find this and Pyrojaste as the two weakest runes. The two best runes I find are Roll the Bones and Flashfire, depending on what type of area you're in. If you're inside like this, then Roll the Bones is the best, whereas Flashfire's better for outdoors area, and Fire Pit is the strongest out of the single target spells. Anyways, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks, guys.